First shot, Gen 6 Glock 17. Not too bad. Welcome back, everyone. As you probably guessed from the title of the video, we are talking about this gun right here. This is the relatively new, anyway, Gen 6 Glock 17. So, of course, Glocks are known for being simple, reliable, relatively affordable, and this is the newest iteration of that. So what we're going to do today is talk about the performance of this actual firearm, some of the features it has, compare it to the previous generation, and basically what I think of it overall. But full disclosure, I did purchase this direct from Glock, so they didn't send it to me for the review or anything like that. I bought it, it's mine, it is what it is, but I was invited down there for the release of the Gen 6 pistols, whatever that was, months ago at this point. But I've had this one in since it came out. This is one of the first ones that was actually released from the factory. Right now, we have just under 3,000 rounds through it, which for me, if you guys watch the channel a lot, you'll know that is relatively rare. And the reason for that, just right up front, is because I was actually so enamored, I guess you could say, with this gun that I'm debating making it one of my home defense pistols. So I really wanted to test it out and make sure that it's going to run if it is something that I'm going to trust my life and my family's life to. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Some of the most notable changes on the Gen 6 are going to be, of course, the grip texture, the trigger, the ledge, the optics mounting system, and there's some other things that we'll talk about here in just a second, but those are the big ones. And of course, some people criticize Glock when they release their Gen 6 for not having enough change to them. I would argue that it's probably not a good thing to radically change a product that is very proven. And certainly Glocks, particularly the Glock 17 in this case, which was the original Glock, has been probably one of the most proven semi-automatic guns out there on the market, and certainly the most proven striker fired semi-automatic on the market since it has been released in the 80s. So with that, let's start here at the bottom and sort of work our way up and go through all the different details of the firearm. But before we actually start walking through it step by step, I need to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the good folks over at Attorneys on Retainer. Of course, they provide legal services to anybody who is either concealed carrying, using a firearm or weapon of any kind for home defense, things like that. But they also do provide insurance, concealed carry insurance or self-defense insurance for armed professionals. So let's take a look at an example of somebody that they actually covered in real life.
My name is Eric Salisbury. I was involved in a self-defense shooting in Portland, Oregon. I had been a member of AOR for about 6 months before this happened. I was amazed at the response of the AOR legal team. From the moment that I called and talked to Andrew, they were on the case and they were talking to the detectives, to the police officers. If you own a firearm, you've got to be able to protect yourself on the legal side. This team will do that for you.
And again, we want to thank the folks over at Attorneys on Retainer for sponsoring the channel. There should be codes here on your screen that will get you guys a discount. That is a special discount for the 250th anniversary of America. So if you're interested, definitely check that out and also use the channel code here on the screen. Now continuing on to the actual firearm itself, it does come with 3 magazines. Of course, the Glock 17 is going to have the standard capacity 17 round magazines. If you live in a normal place, if you live in an abnormal place, they do offer 10 round magazines for those types of places. Now, one thing that is different on the gun, and we do have a Gen 5 right here for comparison. These guns have been safety checked for the Nazis out there, but one difference, of course, is going to be the mag flare. It is slightly larger here on the Gen 6. Most people probably will not notice it though, because the Gen 5 had a little bit of a flare to it, but this one is a little bit wider. I personally dig it, particularly on a duty size weapon like this. Like, most people are not going to conceal carry a Gen 6 Glock 17. I know some of you out there will. I personally won't be. But so on a duty size gun like this, I don't mind an increased mag flare, and in fact, I actually like it. Now continuing on up on the grip angle is going to be identical. However, the texture is radically different in a good way. I actually, generally speaking, like the Gen 5 grip texture, but the Gen 6 grip texture is much improved. I believe they call it the RTF Gen 6. And for those, again, who have watched the channel for a while now, you guys know I love the original Gen 3 RTF, which is a rough texture finish 2 grip texture that those guns had. I loved it, still love it. And this one is a hybrid of that RTF2 texture as well as the Gen 5 texture. So it's a little bit of both. I like it. Right now, as I'm filming this, you guys can probably see me sweating. It's like in the upper 90s and 100% humidity out here, even at the end of the day. And so where I live, it's pretty much always hot and humid. And so because of that, I like something that is aggressive in terms of grip texture so I can actually hold on to the guns. Now, of course, 9mm, not a whole lot of recoil, but more grip texture, in my opinion, for my personal use is a good thing. So I do like the increased grip texture. Additionally, there's some different things going on with the grip itself. So I'm sure it'll be relatively difficult to see in photos, but it actually has a palm swell here that is a little bit larger. So for a lot of people, that will improve the ergonomics of the gun and make it feel less blocky. And if you guys, again, it's probably hard to see there on camera, but there's more of an edge there as the grip wraps around on the Gen 5 than there is with the Gen 6, a little bit more rounded, and it has that bulge on the side. In my opinion, it does help with ergonomics. That said, again, I am biased towards Glocks because that is how I started shooting. So for me, Glocks actually feel normal, but I realized to a lot of other people who didn't grow up shooting Glocks, they're gonna feel a little bit abnormal, I get that. But it does also give you a little bit more space here to get in with your support hand. I should also note that it does come with multiple back straps. We do have the medium one on there. I have relatively large hands, and I do prefer a little bit more grip circumference on there. And it does give you, again, a little bit more space to get in there with your support hand. I dig it. More real estate on the gun with your support hand is a good thing. It just helps you control the recoil impulse and minimize the gun slipping around in your hand. Additionally, that texture is on the front and back strap where it is most important. That is the critical surface, if you will, for grip texture. Additionally, one thing that I frequently complain about with firearms is not having the grip texture go all the way up. The Gen 5s, I gave them that criticism in my review of all of those guns. Glock has fixed that with the Gen 6. It goes all the way up. Once again, that's critical to having engagement surface there with your offhand. I do dig that. Another thing that is different is going to be the magazine release on these guns. It has that rounded corner on there that I believe was introduced with the FBI guns, the 19M and then the 17M that came out, and it is now standard on the Gen 6s. It is reversible, and the magazines are cut for reversible use, so you can swap it to either side. So no problems there if you guys are left-handed and you want to swap around your mag release. Additionally, in terms of ambidextrous features, is going to be our slide release and slide lock lever. It is obviously on both sides, and it is actually shrouded more so than the Gen 5s were, and additionally the Gen 4s, so you don't accidentally hit it. If you guys watched my Gen 5 17 video, that is actually one of the things I talked about, is that I was actually hitting the slide lock and getting a false slide lock when the magazine wasn't empty. So that obviously is super suboptimal. I have not had it, not even once, with the Gen 6. So I do dig that. Continuing on forward, we do have more of an undercut there on the trigger guard than you would have on the Gen 5. Once again, it's just allowing you to get a little bit higher up on the frame and have a little bit better control of it when you're shooting. Just a small improvement, but it is something that a lot of people like, and a lot of people who get Glock knuckle have seen that minimized with that undercut as well. So if you're somebody who suffers from Glock knuckle, I don't have like a therapist that you can call, but I do have a Gen 6 that might help that if you are one of those folks. Additionally, the trigger on this one is different. It has a flat-ish shoe. However, I will tell you that the actual trigger pull itself feels very similar, and that's either going to be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on whom you ask, right? So again, if you are used to Glock triggers, that's a good thing in my opinion, which would be the case for me. And I will stop talking and let this helicopter go by before we zoom in and take a look at this trigger. Our friends in the black helicopter have moved on. Now getting into that trigger as promised. Again, we're going to make sure it is clear. We have, again, that flattish shoe, and then we do have our trigger safety on the inside. So if you don't press that little lever down, your trigger will not pull. That is a safety feature of the Glock firearms. Glock also has a striker safety on the inside. Glocks are extremely drop safe. These have been dropped out of helicopters, stuff like that. So if you're worried about a drop safe gun, you don't have to be with the Glock. Now let's get into that trigger pull itself. You sort of have that take up there. That's kind of some slop. If it was a rifle, you would refer to it as the first stage of the trigger. And then we have our harder resistance, which is right there. And then as you can see, we have some movement that you have to roll through before the trigger actually breaks. Has a crisp break once you actually get to the break, but you have to roll through a little bit of resistance. It's a little bit weird. You're not used to Glocks. It's weird, no doubt about it. Now, the reset, absolutely phenomenal. I love Glock resets. I've always liked the Glock reset. It's very positive. It allows you to really get on the gun hard and fast if you want to. And then back on that pseudo wall. And then we're going to roll through a little bit more. And the brake right there is braking right at just over 5 pounds on my scale. It's like 5.2, 5.3, pretty much every time. Interestingly, my Glock 19 Gen 6, this one right here, is braking just under 5 pounds now at this point. So just a slight variance in the trigger is what it is, but that is on my Lyman trigger pull gauge. So there is that. But trigger pull, my opinion, it's not great. Like, it's absolutely not going to compete with like a HK BP9 or a CZ P10C or some of the other striker, Canic, for example, some of the other striker fire guns out there in terms of having a nice trigger, but it is a perfectly serviceable trigger. And if you can't shoot a Glock well, I've said this many, many times, then it's your fault. It simply isn't the trigger's fault. You just need a little bit better trigger control if that is the case. Now, moving on. We do have still our squared off trigger guard. Should also mention that this gun, the Gen 6s, will fit in any of the Glock 17 holsters out there on the market, including Safariland, which is probably what you guys have seen me using throughout this video. So retention holsters, it will work just fine on there. So that is a very important thing for a lot of folks when it comes to Glocks. This one absolutely fits within that in terms of size and holster compatibility. We have that little ledge up front with a little bit of texture on there. I know some folks like to shoot with their finger out there. If that is you, then there you go. Continuing up on the frame there, we do have the ledge built into it. Now there's not additional material added to the frame versus a Gen 5. They actually cut a little bit out with the scallop, and that is where your thumb rest, if you will, kind of is. Now for me, again, I have XL size hands when wearing gloves, so my thumb kind of goes forward of that with my natural grip. But I think for people with average size hands, it's actually going to fit you quite well. Continuing on front to our light rail. Here we have a pretty big difference versus the Gen 5. So the Gen 5, you guys can see the dust cover. This portion right here goes all the way out to where the slide ends. On the Gen 6, that absolutely is not the case. It stops short because it uses that Glock 19 size recoil spring on the inside of the gun. So our slide actually extends a little bit past it, but we do have that light rail mounting point there on the bottom. So it is a 1913 spec. I believe up until the Gen 4, the Glock was using their own unique Glock size rail, but on the Gen 5s and the Gen 6s, they have gone over to a 1913 rail. That's the right call, in my opinion, in terms of having universal accessory mounting. So if you want to mount your lights, lasers, whatever you want to mount on there, it'll mount on there just fine. Now continuing up to our slide. Slide has that DLC finish on there, the diamond-like coating. Very durable, very corrosion resistant. Like I said, this gun right now, as of when I'm filming it, in all the photos that you guys are being seen, if you see a photo being rolled in that's out here on the dock, then that is a recent photo with the current round count on it. I mean, it has virtually no wear on it, which is fantastic in terms of the finish, but that's going to give you good corrosion resistance, good lubricity, all of those sorts of things. We have some wear marks there up towards the front where it's going in and out of holsters, but honestly, I mean, the thing looks really, really good. Glock, as many of you guys know, when they switched over from the Tennifer finish, they went with a few different finish options, and some of them kind of sucked. I think they've got it figured out now with the Gen 6s. Up front there, we do have these forward serrations. The serrations on the Gen 6 are actually different than they were on the Gen 5. It's kind of hard to tell. This is early Gen 5 that didn't have the forward serrations, but even the later Gen 5s with the forward serrations, the serrations are slightly deeper, and they're actually cut at an angle. So up towards the top of the serrations are deeper into the slide than they are there on the bottom. So if you guys are running optics, something like that, you can manipulate the slide perfectly fine like that. Of course, we also have the serrations there on the rear of the slide. Sights on the gun suck from the factory 100%. They're plastic, they're trash. I genuinely don't understand in 2026 how a gun can be released at the price point of this gun with rather plastic sights. But it is what it is. The sights we have on here are our optics height sights from our friends over at XS Sights. They did send them out for this video, but you guys know I have loved XS Sights for a long time. This is set sort of a minimalist set where it has that square notch on the rear with the serrations and then the tritium vial up front, but sort of blacked out and serrated, not a bright ring like a lot of people like. So when you're using it with an optic, a lot of people like that minimalistic type of setup, but it's still there if your optic is dead for whatever reason to use. The optics mounting system on the Gen 6 is going to be something that's pretty controversial. So when I actually went down to Glock and they were explaining all the differences with it, one thing I'll say is I think it is 100% an improvement over the MOS system. I will also say that right now I am at 2 Gen 6 Glocks that we have tested here on the channel thoroughly with, drop testing, racking them, all those sorts of things. I've not had a single optic come loose on me to date. We've ran, I think, 4 different optics on these 2 guns so far. But what I will say is that there are people out there on the internet that you will see saying that their optics were coming loose. 2 reasons for that I'm aware of is mainly going to be the screws that are being recommended by, say, Trijicon, for example. Like this is a Trijicon RMR, this is their new green dot version. The screws that are being recommended in a lot of the instruction manuals and things like that for Glocks are going to be recommended based on the old MOS system. And the old MOS system didn't allow you to use certain length screws on certain optics, if that makes sense. So the Gen 6 mounting system allows you to use longer screws. So what I will say is that if you guys are looking at instructions for an MOS optic and the mounting solution for it, use longer screws, you'll probably be okay. So that is what I have done. And again, like I said, I haven't had any of them come loose at all. Of course, use your Loctite, all of the other things, but the system in terms of how it comes from Glock from the factory is pretty interesting. It's sort of like a hybrid plate system. So it has like a half plate that when you actually mount it down onto the slide itself, it clamps that plate down, that piece of polymer, and it sort of acts like an O-ring as it's clamped down. Again, in my use, I've had 0 issues with it at all, and I definitely think it is an improvement over the MOS system. Barrel on these guns is going to be their marksman barrel. It's actually the same barrel that they used with the Gen 5 with a slight difference in terms of the step in the barrel. But that's for like nerds. Like generally speaking, just say it's the same as the Gen 5 because most people will not be able to tell the difference. That said, it is a hybrid polygonal rifled barrel, and the Glock barrels ever since the Gen 4 in my personal experience, especially 9mm, have been absolute laser beam shooters. They are extremely, extremely accurate. Like if you're going to swap your barrel on a Gen 6 Glock and you're doing it for accuracy, you're not going to see an improvement with an aftermarket match barrel. I mean, these things shoot extremely, extremely solid groups, under 2 inches at 25 yards with basically most of your quality defensive ammo out there is exactly what you should expect. And in my experience, that is what we have seen. We tested this with a number of different hollow point loads to include some Fiocchi 147 that I actually did bench on this, and it was getting right around 1.75 in the 2 groups that we shot with it, inches at 25 yards. So for me, with my shooting capabilities, which aren't the greatest, but are probably better than some, that's perfectly acceptable for a duty style gun with hollow point ammunition. And I'm sure some of you guys out there will be able to shoot it a little bit tighter than that. Now we'll see how some 147 grain Fiocchi does in the gun. It's a Glock, should work. One way to find out. As expected, fed just fine. Now we're going to run some hollow points through it. These are 147 grain Fiocchi. We already have one in the pipe bag is full. So one of the pipe bag full. Some guns do have a hard time with that on top of the hollow points. We shall see. Can't really do any better than that. So the barrel is high quality. One other difference that we need to talk about on the Gen 6s that's a little bit different than many of you guys are used to with the Glocks is going to be the extractor system that we have here. It's a unit that you can actually pull out for maintenance and replace for maintenance as well, which certainly is good. But one of the reasons Glock told me when I was down at their factory that they did that was kind of what I was referring to there with that optic mounting system. With the MOS system on the right side, this screw right here, people were putting screws that were too long in there and it was causing the plunger, the extractor plunger, to bind up and not work correctly. You guys who watched my RXM video saw me do that with that particular gun in that video, so I am guilty of it at times. I've never done it with a Glock, but I do understand how it can happen. And that system, that modular system there, was one of the things that when the Gen 6 was announced, not a lot of people were expecting. And a lot of people were questioning it, I guess you could say, in terms of reliability. Because the old system with the traditional long plunger that goes all the way back here to the end of your slide, I mean, it's just proven. I mean, those things have been all around the world in all different conditions, and they've functioned very, very reliably. So far to date, like I mentioned, just under 3,000 rounds, 0 malfunctions of any kind. And as you guys have seen from the shooting footage that we have been rolling in, it throws the brass pretty good. So I'm not worried about it, but it is something to note that is different from the early versions. And with that, I think the only thing we haven't talked about is going to be price point. So price point on this gun, pretty much everywhere is going to be $620. So it's the same price that the Gen 5s were coming in at. A lot of people thought they might up the price, but I'm glad they didn't for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's just so many good competitors that compete in this space in terms of a striker fired, full-size duty style 9mm gun that are extremely aggressively priced, like way less than this. So if they did increase the price, it would probably hurt them in the marketplace in terms of what people are actually choosing to buy. But $620 for the pistol for a very proven, very reliable gun, which at this point, you know, months later after the release, I haven't really seen any reports of people saying these guns aren't reliable. Like I've seen other complaints, like we talked about, some folks had their optics come loose. That's honestly the only complaint I've really seen with the Gen 6s. But in terms of reliability, durability so far, I mean, there's multiple competitive shooters out there that have social media presences and they're all saying, you know, over 10,000 rounds, haven't changed anything, 100% reliable, same recoil spring, which Glock doesn't recommend you go that long, but just to prove that it can be done, it seems that it is happening. So $620 for a very proven gun at this point that is going to have all of the aftermarket accessibility that Glocks have, which is more than any other pistol ever. I don't think it's unreasonable in my opinion. Would it be better if it was less? Sure, but there is that. So that is it. That is my take on the Gen 6 Glock 17. If you guys have any questions about this, anything like that, definitely let us know down below in the comment section. Also, if you guys have one of these, which I know a number of you guys do, let us know how yours has performed, because as I always say here on the channel, when I'm reviewing a product, 99 times out of 100, it is a sample size of 1. In this particular case, that is true. So having a greater sample size from the audience is always nice. So I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say down below in the comment section. Additionally, if you like this type of video, in-depth reviews, we do a lot of them here on the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you've hit the subscribe button and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you can fix that by signing up for the email list that you guys see here on your screen. That'll get you put on 2 different emails. One of them is going to be the monthly email that goes out monthly, as the name indicates, and it has all the videos since the previous month's email went out, so that way there's no big tech giant censoring you from my content through an algorithm. Additionally, it'll get you put on the daily deals email, so should this thing go on sale, which every now and then it does, it's super rare because Glock's weird about the pricing, but every now and then it will. If the optic goes on sale, if the magazines go on sale, if the ammo goes on sale, some of the lights that you guys have seen, any of that stuff goes on sale. It'll be in the daily deals email if it is the cheapest I know of for that item on that day, because I've already done the price comparisons for you. So hopefully that saves you guys some time and some money if you're signed up for the email. There's also a good meme in there that a lot of you guys will like. So if you guys want to sign up just for a Pro 2A meme, I will allow it. You can sign up just for that and get a good laugh once a day as the email comes in. Lastly, we do have an SMS service that you can sign up for. You can do that by texting the word gear to the code here on your screen. You will have to acknowledge that you are over 21 because the FCC has weird guidelines about texting. I don't know. I don't make the rules. It is what it is. But once you opt in, that'll get you on the SMS list. that goes out at most once a day, but it's not even every day. And it'll have one of two things in there, either a smoke and deal that very likely will sell out right after the text goes out, because that way I let my audience know something is in stock for a smoking price, or rather, it will have a new video that just dropped, once again getting around that algorithmic censorship, letting you guys know that I actually just put some content up for you to consume. And with that, that's all I have for you. Thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video. For a Glock, I mean, this thing just shoots phenomenally well, in my opinion.